How did ancient humans discover that some animals could be trusted? Imagine living thousands of years ago. There are no houses with locked doors, no police, no fences, and no animal shelters. Around you are forests, mountains, rivers, and wild animals. Some can provide food, some can kill you, and some might become your closest companions. But how did ancient humans discover that certain animals could actually be trusted? How did someone look at a wild creature and think, maybe this animal won't hurt me? The answer was probably not one dramatic moment. It was a long process of observation, risk, patience, and countless generations of trial and error. For ancient humans, animals were everywhere. They were predators, competitors, prey, and sometimes unexpected neighbors. Humans had to learn animal behavior simply to survive. A person who understood when a wolf was aggressive, when a herd was frightened, or when a dangerous animal was about to attack had a much better chance of staying alive. Ancient people didn't have books explaining animal behavior, but they had something even more important: experience. They watched, they remembered, and they passed their knowledge to others. At first, most wild animals probably weren't considered trustworthy at all. Imagine finding a young animal separated from its mother. It might look harmless, but getting too close could be extremely dangerous. Ancient humans gradually learned that animals had different personalities and behaviors. Some were nervous and ran away immediately. Others were curious and approached humans. Some became aggressive when threatened, while others tolerated human presence. This difference may have been one of the earliest clues that certain animals could live near people. One of the most fascinating examples is the relationship between humans and wolves. Today, dogs are among the most trusted animals on Earth, but their ancestors were wild wolves. So how could such a relationship have started? Scientists still debate the exact process, but one possibility is that some wolves began approaching human camps to feed on leftovers. A campfire meant food scraps, bones, and protection from some predators. The wolves that were less fearful of humans could have benefited from staying nearby. Humans, in turn, may have noticed that these less aggressive animals could sometimes provide warnings when danger approached. But trust would not have happened instantly. A wolf walking toward a camp would have been terrifying. Humans probably had to learn which animals were dangerous and which ones were simply curious. The wolves themselves also had to learn that humans were not always a threat. Over many generations, animals that were calmer around humans may have had an advantage. Eventually, this long relationship could have contributed to the emergence of early domesticated dogs.
And humans didn't only observe wolves. They watched many other animals. Young wild animals were especially interesting because they were often easier to handle than adults. Ancient people may have discovered that certain animals could be raised near humans if they were captured young. This was an important realization. Instead of simply killing an animal for food, humans could sometimes keep it alive, feed it, and observe its behavior. But there was another powerful clue. Animals could communicate their intentions through body language. Ancient humans didn't understand animal psychology in scientific terms, but they could recognize patterns. A growling animal with its teeth exposed was probably dangerous. A frightened animal backing away was telling you to keep your distance. An animal that remained calm in your presence was giving a very different signal. Over time, humans became extremely good at reading these signals. They could recognize the difference between an animal that was curious and one that was preparing to attack. They could notice changes in posture, movement, sounds, and facial expressions. This knowledge was not written down. It was learned through watching animals every day. The discovery of trustworthy animals may have also happened accidentally. Imagine an ancient human finding an abandoned baby animal. Instead of killing it, someone decides to keep it alive. The animal receives food and warmth. It becomes familiar with human voices and smells. Days become weeks. The animal stops trying to escape. Eventually, It may begin following the humans around. For the people watching this transformation, it would have been remarkable. They may have discovered something incredibly important. An animal's behavior could change depending on how humans treated it. This was especially useful for animals that lived in groups. Humans could observe which animals were easier to control, which were calmer, and which responded to leadership. Over generations, people began selecting animals that were more useful or easier to live with. This process eventually helped create domesticated animals such as sheep, goats, cattle, and dogs. But trust had limits. Ancient humans probably never believed that every domesticated animal was completely safe. Even a familiar animal could become dangerous when frightened, injured, hungry, or protecting its young. So the relationship wasn't simply humans trusted animals. It was more complicated. Humans learned when an animal could be trusted and when it couldn't.
This distinction was extremely important. A person might trust a dog to warn the group about strangers, but still understand that the dog could bite if threatened. A shepherd could depend on animals for food and clothing, while knowing that predators might attack the herd. Trust was based on predictable behavior. And perhaps that is the most important discovery ancient humans made. They learned that trust doesn't mean believing an animal will never hurt you. It means understanding what the animal is likely to do. That idea changed human history. Once humans could cooperate with animals, the possibilities became enormous. Dogs could help with hunting and protection. Herding animals could provide milk, meat, wool, and transportation. Horses could eventually transform travel and warfare. Animals became partners in human survival rather than simply creatures living outside the human world. But the process probably took thousands of years. There was no ancient scientist standing in a laboratory deciding which animal was friendly. Instead, there were countless ordinary people watching, experimenting, making mistakes, and learning. One generation noticed something, the next generation remembered it. Slowly, knowledge accumulated. And maybe the most amazing part is that humans didn't discover animal trust because they were fearless. They discovered it because they were cautious enough to observe. They watched the wolf that didn't attack. They noticed the goat that stayed near the camp. They learned the behavior of the horse, the sheep, the cow, and the dog. They discovered that some creatures could respond to patience, food, protection, and companionship. Thousands of years later, we live with animals in ways ancient humans could hardly have imagined. Dogs sleep beside our beds. Cats sit on our furniture. Horses carry people. Cows and sheep live alongside human communities. Yet every one of these relationships has a history that began with a simple question: can I get close to this animal without being hurt? Ancient humans didn't answer that question in a single day. They answered it through generations of observation, courage, caution, and cooperation. And somewhere along that journey, humans discovered something extraordinary. Sometimes a creature that once seemed wild and dangerous could become a friend. And perhaps that was one of the first great partnerships in human history. Thanks for watching.